I pushed open Rebecca's bedroom door, looking for my phone charger, and my world stopped. Her laptop sat open on the desk, the screen glowing with an email draft. My name jumped out at me from the text. I stepped closer, my heart hammering against my ribs. The email was addressed to my mother-in-law, Patricia. I started reading, and my stomach turned to ice. Dear Patricia, I need to tell you something about Daniel that's been weighing on me. I've noticed suspicious transactions in our father's estate account. Money has been disappearing, and I believe Daniel is responsible. I have proof he's been transferring funds without authorization. I'm gathering documentation, but I wanted you to know because this affects your daughter's future. Daniel has been hiding financial problems from everyone. My hands shook as I scrolled through her sent folder. There were more emails going back 11 months. Messages to Patricia, to my uncle, to our cousin, all containing the same poison. Fabricated bank statements, altered dates, screenshots with my name photoshopped into suspicious transactions. My sister had been building a case against me for almost a year, constructing an elaborate lie designed to destroy my reputation and steal my inheritance. I pulled out my phone and started photographing everything. Daniel. Rebecca's voice called from downstairs. Are you up there? My name is Daniel Crawford. I'm 34 years old, from Portland, Oregon, and what I'm about to tell you changed my life forever. If you want to hear more stories like this, please subscribe to this channel. You won't believe where this goes. I closed the laptop carefully and walked out of Rebecca's room, my phone heavy in my pocket with the evidence I'd just captured. Downstairs, she stood in the kitchen preparing dinner, her back to me. My wife, Amanda, sat at the table scrolling through her phone. Neither of them looked up when I entered. Found your charger? Rebecca asked, her voice light and casual. Yeah, it was in my room after all. I lied, forcing my voice to stay steady. Dinner that night felt like torture. I sat across from Rebecca, watching her laugh and tell stories about her day, knowing what she'd been planning behind my back. Amanda barely glanced at me, her responses to my questions short and distant. I realized then that the campaign had already started. My wife's coldness wasn't random. Rebecca had been poisoning her mind for months. Daniel seems quiet tonight, Rebecca observed, looking at me with concern that made my skin crawl. Everything okay? Just tired from work. I managed. Patricia called during dessert. Amanda answered, spoke in low tones, then hung up. She looked at me strangely before excusing herself to the bathroom. When she returned, she said, Mom wants us to come over tomorrow, just for coffee. The way she said it told me everything. This was the beginning. Patricia's house smelled like vanilla and betrayal when we arrived. She hugged Amanda warmly, then turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We sat in her living room, the afternoon sun making everything too bright, too exposed. Daniel, honey, I want to talk to you about something delicate, Patricia began, her hands folded in her lap. Amanda mentioned you've been stressed lately. Is everything all right financially? My throat tightened. We're fine. Why do you ask? Well, managing your father's estate must be complicated. All those accounts, all that responsibility. She paused, watching my face. Sometimes people get overwhelmed. Sometimes money goes missing, and it's not always intentional. There it was, the test. Rebecca had planted the seed, and now Patricia was watering it, watching to see how I'd react. The estate is managed properly, I said carefully. Everything is documented and reviewed quarterly. Patricia nodded slowly, but doubt flickered in her eyes. Amanda sat beside me, silent. She didn't defend me. She didn't ask what her mother was implying. She just watched me like I was a stranger she was trying to figure out. That night, lying in bed, Amanda turned to me in the darkness. Daniel, if something's wrong, you can tell me. If you're struggling with something, I want to help. Like what? I asked, even though I knew. Like anything you might be hiding. I couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m, I went to my office and started digging through files I'd kept from Dad's estate. Everything was in order, just like I knew it would be. But I needed to understand how Rebecca had manufactured her lies. I found the first discrepancy in a bank statement from 14 months ago. The document showed a transfer I'd never made, $5,000 to an account I didn't recognize. But the date was wrong. I checked the original statement against the one in Rebecca's emails. She'd altered the date, changed the amount, and added my name to the authorization field. I kept searching. Every piece of evidence she created had small tells, fonts that didn't match, timestamps that contradicted other records. She'd been sloppy because she never expected me to see her work before she struck. By dawn, I'd traced the pattern. She'd started 9 months after Dad died, right after the estate was settled, and I was named executor. The jealousy must have been eating at her. Dad had trusted me with everything, and she couldn't stand it. Then I found something that stopped my heart. A draft legal letter, dated for next month, demanding I relinquish my position as executor and transfer half my inheritance to her immediately. The letter cited financial misconduct and breach of fiduciary duty. She was planning to expose me publicly, force me out, and take everything. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. Family meeting this Sunday. Important estate matters to discuss. Everyone will be there. I remember when we were kids, how differently Dad treated us. He'd take me to the bank, explain investment strategies, teach me about compound interest and fiscal responsibility. Rebecca would beg to come along, but Dad always said she was too young, too distracted, not ready for the responsibility. She was only 2 years younger than me, but a dad, that gap might as well have been a decade. When I turned 16, Dad opened a joint account with me, teaching me to manage money. Rebecca got a savings account with a $50 monthly allowance. When I graduated college, Dad made me a co-signer on his business accounts. Rebecca got a job at his company, but never in finance, never in management. I'd never seen it as favoritism. I thought Dad was just practical, giving responsibilities to the person who showed interest. But Rebecca saw it differently. She saw a father who valued his son over his daughter, who trusted me with everything and her with nothing. When Dad died, the will confirmed her worst fears. I inherited the house, the investment portfolio, and control of the estate. Rebecca got a trust fund, substantial but controlled, requiring my approval for large withdrawals. At the funeral, she'd hug me and whispered, "You were always his favorite." I thought it was grief talking. Now I understood it was rage, simmering impatient, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. My phone buzzed again. A text from my cousin. "Rebecca says you've been mishandling Dad's money. Is that true?" Instead of confronting Rebecca, I drove to the offices of Morrison and Associates, the compliance firm that had handled Dad's estate audit. I met with Thomas Morrison, a careful man with gray hair and sharp eyes who'd worked with Dad for 20 years. I showed him everything. The emails, the altered documents, the timeline of Rebecca's campaign. He studied each piece in silence, occasionally making notes. Finally, he looked up, "This is systematic fraud. She's built a false narrative, manipulated evidence, and committed defamation. You could pursue criminal charges." "I don't want to destroy my sister," I said. "I just want the truth to come out." Thomas leaned back in his chair. "Then you need patience. Let her execute her plan. Document everything. When she makes her accusations public, the truth will be undeniable. But if you confront her now, she'll destroy evidence and claim you're retaliating." "My marriage is falling apart," I admitted. "Then save your marriage first. Show your wife enough to plant doubt in Rebecca's story. But don't reveal your full hand. Not yet." I left his office with a strategy. Be patient. Be quiet. Let Rebecca think she was winning while I built an airtight case. That night, Rebecca called. "Looking forward to Sunday's meeting," she said sweetly. "We really need to discuss the estate's future. Some concerning things have come to my attention." "What kind of things?" I asked, playing innocent. "We'll discuss it with the family. It's better if everyone hears together." Sunday arrived like an execution date. The meeting was at Mom's house, where Rebecca had gathered Uncle James, Aunt Carol, our cousin Michael, and Patricia. Amanda sat beside her mother, not beside me. The seating arrangement told me everything about where loyalties had been planted. Rebecca began softly, her voice full of concern. I asked everyone here because I discovered something troubling about Dad's estate. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence is undeniable. She pulled out a folder, the same fabricated documents I'd photographed from her computer. Over the past year, significant amounts of money have been transferred from the estate to accounts Daniel controls privately. $50,000 across multiple transactions. Aunt Carol gasped. Uncle James frowned. Mom looked at me with confusion and hurt. These transfers weren't authorized by the estate plan, Rebecca continued. They weren't disclosed in quarterly reports. I've been trying to understand why, but Daniel has been evasive every time I ask about finances. That's not true. I started, but Rebecca talked over me. I have statements, transaction records, everything documented. I didn't want to bring this up, but the family deserves to know. Michael, who'd always looked up to me, wouldn't meet my eyes. Patricia reached over and squeezed Amanda's hand. Daniel, is this true? Mom asked quietly. Before I could answer, Rebecca's husband, Kyle, stood up. I have additional documentation here that might help clarify the timeline. I sat there looking confused and hurt, exactly as Thomas had coached me. I didn't defend myself aggressively. I didn't produce my evidence. I acted like someone who'd been caught, but wasn't sure how. I don't understand where these numbers are coming from. I said weakly, I've managed everything according to Dad's instructions. Then explain these transfers, Rebecca pressed, pushing papers across the table. I'd need to review my records, I stammered. I don't have everything memorized. It killed me to act incompetent, but I saw the effect. Rebecca relaxed slightly. Uncle James looked disappointed, but not entirely convinced. They wanted to believe I was a thief. But Rebecca's presentation was persuasive. I think we need a professional review, Mom said finally. An independent audit to understand what happened. That's fair, Rebecca agreed quickly. Too quickly. She thought an audit would confirm her fabricated evidence. Amanda drove home in silence. In our driveway, she turned to me. I need the truth, Daniel. All of it. I've never stolen anything, I said. Then why do you look guilty? That night, I heard her moving things in the bedroom. When I went upstairs, she was carrying her pillow to the guest room. Amanda, please. I need space to think, she said, not looking at me. My mother says there are debts you've been hiding, that you've been gambling. Gambling? The accusation was so absurd, I almost laughed. I've never gambled in my life. Then where's the money, Daniel? She closed the guest room door in my face. For 3 weeks, Amanda barely spoke to me. She went to work, came home, made dinner, and disappeared into the guest room. I heard her on the phone with Patricia, their conversations ending when I walked by. Then one morning, I saw a business card on the kitchen counter. Stephanie Lewis, family law attorney. My heart stopped. Amanda was meeting with a divorce lawyer. That night, I tried again. Amanda, we need to talk about what's happening. I've talked to a lawyer, she said flatly. She says if you've been hiding assets or accumulating secret debts, I need to protect myself legally. I haven't been doing any of that. Rebecca showed my mother bank records. Daniel, your name is on transfers you never told me about. You're the executor of your father's estate, and money is missing. What am I supposed to think? You're supposed to trust me. She laughed bitterly. Trust you? You won't even defend yourself. You sit there at family meetings looking guilty and confused. If you're innocent, why don't you prove it? Because the truth is more complicated than it looks. I said carefully, then uncomplicated. I made a decision. I went in my office, pulled out a folder, and brought it back to the living room. Inside were copies of the original estate documents, the quarterly audit reports, and side-by-side comparisons of Rebecca's forged documents with the real ones. Look at these, I said, spreading them on the coffee table. Look at the dates. Amanda studied the papers, her expression shifting from anger to confusion. These don't match, she said slowly. No, they don't, because Rebecca altered them. Amanda spent the next hour going through every document I showed her. I watched her face change as she realized the depth of Rebecca's deception, the forged signatures, the manipulated dates. The fabricated transactions. Why would she do this? Amanda whispered. Jealousy. Dad trusted me with everything, and she never forgave him for it. After he died, that jealousy turned into something darker. Amanda's hand shook as she held up one of the comparison sheets. She lied to my mother. She lied to everyone. She's been planning this for almost a year, I said, building a narrative, planting doubts, waiting for the perfect moment to destroy me. Why didn't you tell me this immediately? Because I needed to be sure. I needed evidence that would stand up to scrutiny. If I'd accused Rebecca without proof, I would have looked paranoid and defensive. Amanda put her face in her hands. I almost left you. I actually considered divorcing you because I believed your sister over you. She's very convincing. I said gently, what do we do now? We let the audit happen. We let Rebecca think she's winning. And when the truth comes out, it'll be undeniable. Amanda looked up at me with tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry I doubted you. You were manipulated by someone you trusted. That's not your fault. That night, Amanda moved back into our bedroom. She held me while I finally let myself cry from the stress and betrayal of the past months. We'll get through this, she promised. Together, the independent audit began 2 weeks later. The firm Patricia hired was thorough, requesting years of bank records, transaction logs, estate documents, and correspondence. I provided everything they asked for, organized and clear. Rebecca seemed confident at first. She submitted her evidence with a cover letter explaining her concerns about my management. She painted herself as a grieving daughter trying to protect her father's legacy from a dishonest brother. But then the auditor started asking questions. Ms. Crawford, this transaction dated March 15th shows a transfer authorization with Daniel's signature. But our analysis indicates the document was created on July 20th. Can you explain the discrepancy? I watched Rebecca's confidence flicker. I must have scanned it wrong. The dates get confusing when you're dealing with so many files. And this account number here, the one receiving the funds. Our research shows it belongs to a business owned by your husband. Were you aware of that? Her face went pale. What? No, that can't be right. But it was right. As I discovered in my own investigation, Rebecca hadn't just fabricated evidence against me. She'd actually stolen from the estate, transferring small amounts over months into an account connected to Kyle's consulting business. She then tried to cover her tracks by framing me for her own theft. The amounts were staggering. $60,000 over 14 months. Hidden in transactions she disguised as legitimate estate expenses. I need to speak with my husband, Rebecca said, standing abruptly. There's been a mistake. The lead auditor looked at me. Mr. Crawford, did you authorize any transfers to this account? No, I said simply. I've never even heard of it. That night, I sat with the full audit findings, and the scope of Rebecca's fraud became clear. She hadn't just targeted me. She'd stolen from the estate, which meant she'd stolen from everyone who had a stake in Dad's legacy. Mom, Uncle James, the charitable trust Dad had established, the college fund for Michael's kids. Rebecca had taken money that wasn't just mine to protect. She'd robbed the entire family while trying to frame me as a thief. The auditors had also uncovered something else. Rebecca had forged Mom's signature on several authorization forms, making it look like Mom had approved her access to certain accounts. She'd used that access to move money, then covered her tracks by altering the digital records. Thomas Morrison called me the next morning. Daniel, this is bigger than family drama. This is criminal fraud. The auditors are required to report their findings to law enforcement. Will they prosecute? I asked. Probably. The amounts involved, the systematic deception, the forged signatures. This isn't a civil matter anymore. Your sister could face serious charges. I thought about Rebecca as a kid, following me around, trying to prove she was as smart and capable as I was. I thought about her at Dad's funeral, crying on my shoulder, whispering that she missed him. I never wanted this. I said, I know, but you didn't create this situation. Rebecca did. What happens next is a consequence of her choices, not yours. I hung up and sat in silence. Destroying Rebecca would tear apart what was left of our family. But letting her get away with it meant living with a lie forever. Amanda found me in my office. "You okay?" "Not really. The auditors called. They want to schedule a family meeting to present their findings." I looked at my wife. "This is going to get worse before it gets better." She nodded. "I know, but we'll face it together." The family meeting was scheduled for following Sunday. Same place as before, same people. But this time, the auditors would be present, and the truth would finally come out. Amanda and I spent the week preparing ourselves emotionally. She helped me organize my evidence into a clear timeline, making it impossible to misunderstand what had happened. She also called her mother and told her we needed to talk. Patricia came over, her face tight with concern. Amanda said this was important. "Mom, Daniel has something to show you," Amanda said, "and I need you to look at it with an open mind." I showed Patricia everything. The original documents, the forged versions, the timeline of Rebecca's emails, the proof that the account receiving the stolen funds belonged to Kyle's business. Patricia's face went through a journey as she processed the information. Disbelief, confusion, horror, finally anger. "Rebecca did this?" she asked, her voice small. "Yes," I said. "I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing? You're the victim here." Patricia looked at her daughter. "And I accuse you of marrying a thief. I told you to protect yourself from him." "You were manipulated," Amanda said. "Rebecca manipulated all of us." Patricia stood abruptly and walked to the window, her back to us. When she turned around, tears streamed down her face. "I pushed you toward divorce. I almost destroyed your marriage because I believe lies about a man who's only ever been honest and kind. You didn't know," I said. "I should have known. I should have trusted my daughter's judgment instead of listening to gossip and suspicions." Patricia hugged me then, crying against my shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Daniel. I'm so sorry." Rebecca called on Friday, 3 days before the scheduled meeting. Her voice was bright and confident. "Daniel, I think we should talk before Sunday. Maybe we can settle this privately without involving lawyers and auditors." "What do you mean?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "I mean, I know the estate management has been stressful for you. Maybe we were both a little careless with records. Maybe we can find a solution that works for everyone without dragging this through a formal process." I understood. She'd seen the auditors digging, asking questions she couldn't answer, and now she was trying to control the damage. "What kind of solution?" I asked. "A mediation. Just family, no outsiders. You step down as executor, and we bring a neutral party to manage everything going forward. Clean slate, no accusations, no blame." It was a trap. If I agreed to step down, she could claim I'd admitted guilt. If I refused, she'd use it as evidence that I was being difficult and defensive. "I'll think about it," I said. "Don't think too long. The meeting is Sunday, and once those auditors present their findings publicly, whatever they say becomes permanent record. If there are discrepancies in your management, Daniel, this is your chance to correct them quietly." After she hung up, Amanda looked at me. "She's scared." "She should be." Thomas called an hour later. Rebecca's lawyer contacted the audit firm. They're requesting a delay in the presentation of findings, citing new information that needs to be reviewed. "What new information?" I asked. They wouldn't say. But I suspect they're trying to buy time to construct a defense or destroy evidence. "Can they delay it?" "No. The audit is complete, and the findings are final. Sunday's meeting will proceed as scheduled." That night, I barely slept. Part of me still hoped there was a way to resolve this without completely destroying Rebecca, but I knew the truth had to come out. Justice required it. Sunday morning arrived cold and gray. Amanda and I drove to Mom's house in silence, both of us dreading what was coming. Cars already filled the driveway. Uncle James, Aunt Carol, Michael, Patricia, and of course, Rebecca and Kyle. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Rebecca smiled when she saw me, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Daniel, I'm glad you came. I was worried you might avoid this." "Why would I avoid it?" I asked. "Because facing uncomfortable truths is hard, but we're family. We'll get through this together." The auditors arrived at 10. 3 people in business suits carrying folders and laptops. The lead auditor, a woman named Catherine Torres, set up a presentation screen. "Thank you all for being here," Catherine began. "We've completed our comprehensive review of the estate, and we need to share our findings." Rebecca sat forward confidently. Kyle held her hand. They thought they knew what was coming. Catherine clicked to the first slide. "We found significant discrepancies in the estate management. However, these discrepancies don't match the initial allegations." Rebecca's smile faltered slightly. "Our investigation revealed unauthorized transfers totaling $63,000 over 14 months. These transfers were systematically hidden, using altered documents and forged authorizations." Mom gasped. Uncle James leaned forward. "However," Catherine continued, "these transfers were not made by Daniel Crawford." The room went silent. "The unauthorized transfers were made to an account owned by Summit Consulting LLC, a business registered to Kyle Morrison. The authorizations for these transfers contain forged signatures, including that of the estate executor and the deceased's widow." All eyes turned to Rebecca. Rebecca's face drained of color. "That's impossible. I never. There must be a mistake in your analysis." Catherine pulled up a slide showing bank transfers, account numbers, and dates. "These are the actual records from the financial institutions. The transfers originated from estate accounts and were deposited into Summit Consulting's business account. We verified every transaction." "I don't know anything about this," Rebecca insisted, looking at Kyle. "Did you know about this?" Kyle's face was gray. There were some payments I thought were legitimate consulting fees. Rebecca said the estate had hired my company for financial analysis. "The estate never hired your company," I said quietly. "There's no record of any consulting contract." Catherine continued. "We also found extensive evidence of document manipulation. Bank statements were altered to show transfers under Daniel's authorization that never occurred. Dates were changed. Signatures were forged. All of this manipulation pointed suspicion toward Daniel Crawford while hiding the actual unauthorized transfers." Aunt Carol stood up. "Rebecca, what have you done?" "I haven't done anything." Rebecca's voice rose, panicked now. "Someone is framing me. Daniel must have—" "I have more," I said softly. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the presentation screen. The images I'd photographed months ago appeared. Rebecca's email drafts. Her sent messages to Patricia, to Uncle James, to Michael, each one carefully constructing a narrative of my supposed theft. "I found these on your laptop 11 months ago," I said. "You left it open in your room. I photographed everything because I knew someday I'd need proof of what you were planning." Rebecca stared at the screen, watching her own words appear, her own lies displayed for everyone to see. "I never wanted to destroy you," I continued, my voice steady despite the emotion choking me. "I wanted to give you a chance to come clean, but you doubled down. You tried to destroy my marriage, my reputation, my relationship with our family." The room erupted. Uncle James demanded explanations. Aunt Carol started crying. Mom sat frozen, staring at Rebecca like she didn't recognize her own daughter. "The bank records don't lie," Catherine said, pulling up another slide. "These transactions occurred. These documents were falsified, and the pattern of manipulation is clear and systematic." Kyle stood up suddenly. "I need to speak with a lawyer." "Sit down," Uncle James commanded. "You're not going anywhere until we understand what happened." "The consulting payments were legitimate," Kyle insisted, his voice shaking. "Rebecca told me the estate had approved them." "Did you ask to see the contract?" Catherine asked. She said Daniel was handling it. "There's no contract," Catherine repeated. "These were unauthorized transfers disguised as business expenses." Rebecca turned to me, her eyes wild. "You planned this. You set me up. You knew I was asking questions about the estate. So you created fake evidence to make me look guilty. I have the original estate documents," I said calmly. "Every quarterly report, every authorized transfer, every legitimate expense. The audit confirmed that my management was accurate and transparent. The only falsified documents are the ones you created." "No," Rebecca whispered. No, this isn't happening. The timestamps on the forged documents prove they were created after the estate was settled, Catherine explained. They were created on your computer, using your login credentials, during times when you were the only one accessing files. Mom finally spoke, her voice barely audible. Rebecca, tell me this isn't true. Rebecca looked at our mother, tears streaming down her face. I just wanted what was fair. Dad always favored Daniel. He never trusted me with anything important. And then he died and gave Daniel everything. I deserved more. So you stole it? Mom asked. I took what should have been mine. The confession hung in the air like poison. Kyle buried his face in his hands. Uncle James shook his head in disgust. Aunt Carol moved away from Rebecca like she was contagious. The audit findings will be submitted to the estate court, Catherine said. Given the evidence of fraud and forgery, they'll likely refer the matter to law enforcement. Law enforcement? Rebecca's voice cracked. You mean the police? Fraud of this magnitude, involving forged signatures and systematic theft, is a criminal matter, Catherine explained. The district attorney will decide whether to prosecute. Kyle stood up again. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know the payments weren't legitimate. She told me. You never questioned why an estate was paying your consulting firm $60,000. Uncle James demanded. I thought, she said Daniel approved it. I never approved anything. I said, I never even knew your company existed until the auditors uncovered the transfers. Rebecca turned to me, her earlier defiance crumbling into desperation. Daniel, please, you can fix this. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them you approved the payments and forgot to document them. You want me to lie for you? I asked quietly. I'm your sister. Family protects family. You try to destroy me, I said, my voice steady despite the pain. You manipulated my wife, turned my family against me, forged documents with my name, and stole from our father's legacy. That's not what family does. I made a mistake, Rebecca sobbed. I was jealous and stupid, and I made a terrible mistake. But I'm still your sister. A mistake is forgetting to send a birthday card. Uncle James said coldly. This was calculated, systematic fraud. Mom stood up slowly, her face aged by grief. Rebecca, I need you to leave my house. Mom, please. Get out, Mom said, her voice breaking. I can't look at you right now. Rebecca and Kyle left in silence, their exit watched by a family that would never trust them again. After they were gone, the room remained silent for a long time. Finally, Uncle James spoke. Daniel, I owe you an apology. I doubted you when I should have trusted you. We all doubted him, Patricia said quietly, looking at Amanda. I almost convinced my daughter to leave a good man, because I believed lies. Rebecca was convincing, I said. She spent months building her story, making it seem credible. You were manipulated, all of you. That doesn't excuse our lack of faith, Mom said, tears streaming down her face. You're my son, and I should have known you better than that. She hugged me then, holding on like she was afraid I'd disappear. I'm so sorry, Daniel. I'm so sorry I let you down. You didn't let me down, I said, though the words weren't entirely true. A part of me would always remember the doubt in her eyes at that first family meeting, the way she believed Rebecca over me without question. The auditors left after providing copies of their full report. Catherine pulled me aside before she went. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've never seen anything quite like this. Your sister is very troubled. I know, I said. You handled this with remarkable patience and integrity. A lot of people would have fought back immediately, made it messy and emotional. You let the truth speak for itself. After everyone left, Amanda and I sat alone in Mom's living room. How do you feel? She asked. Sad. I admitted, relieved but sad. She was your sister. She still is my sister. Just not one I can trust anymore. The legal consequences came swiftly. The district attorney reviewed the audit findings and decided to prosecute. Rebecca was charged with fraud, forgery, and theft. Kyle was charged as an accomplice, though his lawyer argued he'd been deceived by his wife. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I testified. explaining the timeline and providing the photographs from Rebecca's laptop. The forensic accountant testified about the forged documents. Catherine presented the audit findings with clinical precision. Rebecca's lawyer tried to paint her as a grieving daughter who'd made poor decisions out of emotional distress. But the systematic nature of the fraud, the months of planning, the deliberate attempts to frame me, none of it suggested emotional instability. It suggested calculated malice. The jury deliberated for 6 hours before returning with guilty verdicts on all charges. Rebecca was sentenced to 4 years in prison, with eligibility for parole after 2. Kyle received 2 years for his role in receiving the stolen funds. The judge ordered them to pay full restitution to the estate, plus legal fees and damages. I sat in the courtroom and watched my sister cry as the bailiffs led her away. Mom sobbed beside me. Amanda held my hand tightly. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. The case had attracted media attention because of the family betrayal angle, the systematic fraud, the dramatic courtroom revelations. Mr. Crawford, do you feel justice was served? A reporter called out. I stopped and looked at the cameras. I feel sad. My sister made terrible choices that destroyed our family. Justice was necessary, but it doesn't feel good. It just feels necessary. Rebecca called from prison 3 months into her sentence. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Daniel. Her voice was small and broken. Thank you for accepting the call. What do you want, Rebecca? I want to apologize. Really apologize. Not like in court when my lawyer told me what to say. I want you to know that I understand what I did was unforgivable. Okay, I said, not trusting myself to say more. I was so jealous of you, she continued, her voice cracking. Dad made me feel invisible my whole life. And when he died and gave you everything, I snapped. I wanted to hurt you the way I felt hurt. So you tried to destroy my marriage and steal from the family. I know how horrible that was. I convinced myself I deserved the money, that Dad owed me, that you'd stolen my inheritance by being the favorite son. But none of that was true. Dad divided things the way he thought was fair, and I should have accepted it. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, because I need you to know that I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to visit me or write to me or have anything to do with me ever again. But I needed to say I'm sorry, and I needed to say that everything that happened is my fault. Not Dad's. Not yours. Mine. I sat in silence, processing her words. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to list every way she'd hurt me. But mostly I just felt tired and sad. I appreciate the apology, I said finally. But you're right. I can't forgive you yet. Maybe not ever. What you did broke something that can't be easily repaired. I understand, Rebecca said quietly. I just hope someday you'll be able to think of me without hating me. I don't hate you, I said truthfully. I'm angry and hurt and disappointed. But I don't hate you. That's more than I deserve. We sat in silence for a moment, the phone line crackling between us. Then Rebecca spoke again. How's Amanda? She's good. We're good. I'm glad. I'm glad I didn't destroy that too. You tried, I said, but our marriage was stronger than your lies. Give her my apology. Tell her I'm sorry for what I put her through, for the things I said to her mother, for trying to turn her against you. I'll tell her. And Mom? How is she? Heartbroken. Betrayed. She visits you, doesn't she? Once a month. She cries the whole time. I thought about Mom, who'd somehow lost both her children in different ways. One to prison, one to the necessity of protecting himself from his own sister. Take care of yourself, Rebecca, I said, meaning it despite everything. You too, little brother. I hung up and sat staring at my phone. Amanda found me in my office. Was that her? Yeah. What did she want? To apologize. Really apologize. And I told her I can't forgive her yet. Maybe not ever. Amanda sat beside me. That's honest. That's all you can do. Part of me wishes I could just let it go and move on. You will move on, Amanda said. But letting go doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means accepting what happened and choosing not to let it define your future. Life slowly found a new normal. I remained executor of Dad's estate, with Uncle James serving as co-executor, provide oversight and accountability. The stolen money was repaid through the sale of Kyle's business and Rebecca's assets. Mom struggled with depression for months, seeing a therapist to process the betrayal and grief. She blamed herself for not seeing Rebecca's jealousy sooner, for not doing more to make both her children feel equally valued. "I failed you both," she told me one afternoon over coffee. "I failed Rebecca by not seeing how Dad's favoritism hurt her, and I failed you by believing her lies." "You didn't fail anyone," I said. "Rebecca made her own choices. She's an adult who decided to commit fraud rather than deal with her feelings honestly. Still, I should have known my own daughter better. You knew the daughter she showed you. The real Rebecca kept herself hidden. Patricia became one of our strongest supporters. She apologized repeatedly for doubting me, for pushing Amanda toward divorce, for believing Rebecca's manipulation. She and Amanda grew closer through the ordeal, their relationship strengthened by facing hard truths together. My relationship with Uncle James and Aunt Carol improved as well. They'd felt guilty for doubting me, and they expressed that guilt through increased involvement in family gatherings and genuine interest in my life beyond the estate. The family had been fractured, but the breaks forced us to rebuild on more honest foundations. 2 years after Rebecca's conviction, I received a letter from her. She'd been granted early parole for good behavior and was being released in 3 months. She wanted to know if I'd be willing to meet with her after her release. I showed the letter to Amanda. "What do you think?" "I think that's your decision," she said. "I'll support whatever you choose." Part of me wants to see her, to understand if she's really changed. But part of me thinks meeting her would just open old wounds. Maybe both things are true. I thought about it for weeks. Finally, I wrote back. I agreed to meet, but only in a public place, and only for an hour. I wasn't ready for reconciliation, but I was willing to have a conversation. When Rebecca walked into the coffee shop, I barely recognized her. Prison had aged her, carved lines into her face that made her look a decade older. She'd lost weight, and her eyes held a sadness I'd never seen before. "Daniel," she said, sitting across from me, "thank you for coming." "You look different," I said. "I am different. Prison does that." We sat in awkward silence for a moment. Then Rebecca spoke. "I've spent 2 years thinking about what I did. In therapy, in my cell, in every quiet moment. And I finally understand something." "What's that?" "I didn't just want your money or your position. I wanted to destroy you, because destroying you felt like the only way to make myself matter. If I could prove you were a failure, maybe it would prove I wasn't. That's incredibly sad." I said honestly, "I know. It's taken me a long time to see how damaged my thinking was." Rebecca and I talked for exactly 1 hour, covering 2 years of incarceration, therapy sessions, and the slow, painful process of accepting responsibility for destroying our family. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't plead for a relationship. She simply acknowledged the reality of what she'd done and the consequences she'd earned. As we stood to leave, she touched my arm briefly. "I know I can't fix what I broke, but I want you to know that I'm genuinely sorry. Not because I got caught or because I went to prison, but because I hurt someone who never deserved it." "I believe you," I said, "but belief doesn't erase what happened." "I know. I just needed to say it face to face." I watched her walk away, a woman forever marked by choices she couldn't undo. I felt a complicated mix of sadness, relief, and closure. Amanda met me outside. "How did it go?" She's genuinely remorseful, but remorse doesn't rebuild trust. No, it doesn't. We drove home to the life we'd rebuilt, stronger now for having survived betrayal. I'd been appointed permanent estate trustee by the court. My reputation was restored. My marriage was thriving. And I'd learned something essential about justice and family. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about truth, accountability, and protecting yourself while leaving room for others to face their consequences with dignity. Rebecca had apologized too late to prevent her punishment, but not too late to begin her own healing. I forgave her eventually, Not because she deserved it, but because holding on to anger was poisoning my own peace. But forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. It meant accepting what happened, releasing my resentment, and moving forward with clear boundaries. I walked into my sister's room that day looking for a phone charger and found the truth about who she really was. Everything changed, but not everything was destroyed. From the ruins of betrayal, I built a life defined by integrity, patience, and the courage to face hard truths. That's the real victory. Not punishing my sister, but becoming someone stronger than the person who first saw those emails and felt his world collapse. I reclaimed not just my reputation, but my sense of self-worth, my marriage, and my future. And that was worth more than any inheritance.